Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the 2-in-1 Family Podcast, where we bring people of the family together and try to have discussions through all generations and just connect everyone richly. Um, my name is Toya Chukwumerije. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast, and our episode today is about the immigrant experience. Um, and we have a panel of 3 lovely guests for you. So I'd like to pass it off. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'm Chinwe, Obioha. My dad is Dan Azikiwe Chukwumerije. I live in Michigan, United States, and I've been here for 29 years.
Okay, my name is Otuto Chukwu. I live in Toronto, Canada now for the past year. I came here to do my PhD, and my connection to the family, my mom is Chinomso Chukwumerije. And it's a pleasure to be on the podcast and to see you guys again.
Okay, my name is Onyeloha Chukwumerije. I'm the son of Sergeant Obonnaya Chukwumerije, and my mother was Margaret Chukwumerije. I live in California with my family, and I've been here for a lot of years.
Awesome. So like I said, this episode's a lot about the motivations for immigrating from the United States to, where we currently reside, and creating community and the challenges of experiencing those shifting cultures and identities. So I think the first question to really start this all off is, what was your for everyone, whoever wants to start off, like what was your motivation for, moving away from Nigeria? And what were some of the challenges that you experienced like through that whole process?
Maybe I should start since I'm the oldest and the person that came earliest than others. My motivation was actually to advance my education. I had obtained a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, Western Nigeria. And I thought, to really be very good at in my career, that I should travel overseas. So that's why I came to the United States. I had gotten admission also to attend Chelsea College in London, and at the same time, St. John's University, where I and Toya, your father, attended, where I got my PhD in industrial pharmacy. My goal was to go back to Nigeria because the time I came here in the 80s, Nigeria was actually much better than it is now. Much better. There were more opportunities. I got a job in a pharmaceutical company as soon as I graduated. Now you can be in Nigeria, people that have graduated 15 years, they don't have a job. That's why people are leaving at this time. But at that time, my goal was to get my PhD, come back to Nigeria, get a good job and settle down. But as I continued to stay in the United States, things got worse and worse and worse. And people that even didn't want you to leave in the 80s, to leave Nigeria, were telling you don't come back. I don't want to mention names, but some people in the family that were not happy that I left, they told me, don't come back. So that was my motivation.
Okay. My motivation initially was marriage. When I came into United States, things didn't quite work out the way I had expected. Then I decided to have a plan B and switch to furthering my education, and eventually marriage did take place. And I'm happy to say I have two beautiful daughters.
Okay. So for me, mine is similar to Uncle Onyeloha's story. So I'm here for my studies. I'm currently pursuing my doctoral studies here at the University of Toronto. And like Uncle Onyeloha said, he wanted to go back when he finished, but that didn't happen then. For me, I still want to go back because for what I'm studying and for what I'm trying to do, I think my calling is still back home. Maybe not just Nigeria, but within sub-Saharan Africa to help improve, healthcare and all of that. We know how bad it is back home. So I always hold this opinion that, I mean, we can't all run away and leave the country and our home behind for leaders that are corrupt and wants to make a mess of the whole thing. So at some point we have to like come back and take, control of our assets, of our home, of everything going on there. So I came here to study, and currently with the way I'm feeling and all of that, I really want to go back when I'm done. But you never know what happens in the future. So let's see how that goes. But by the time I'm done, maybe I will reassess my motivations and strategy. But as it is now, I feel like going back home. I can see Uncle smiling. I can see Uncle smiling, but yeah, let's see how it goes. And Uncle Onyeloha actually motivates me, at least he's still, even though he lives in the US, he comes back to Nigeria like very often. I know he has a lot of student mentors back home in pharmacy schools across Nigeria. In fact, I ran into him. Well, not technically, because we knew we were going to be there. So we're in Australia, both of us, in September earlier this year, and I saw some of his students as well who hold him in high esteem. So you see some of those impact of, coming back home, and all of that. So yeah, that was my motivation. That's my motivation. And let's see what happens at the end of it.
Wow. Yeah, thank you guys. It's kind of interesting to see that it's like all kind of similar. It's like the education motivation of coming here. And I'm kind of like curious, for me personally, as like a first generation like Nigerian American, I think you hear a lot about like the challenges of just immigrating, and just the struggles that immigrants like face within like those new countries they decide to like settle in. I was wondering like if you guys like, despite your motivations and stuff, if you guys like experienced any challenges like, moving away from Nigeria at all? Like, was there any like challenging experiences you guys had to go through?
Maybe the new people can speak to that, and I'll add mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so okay, Auntie, you can go.
Okay, so yeah, a lot of challenges with relocating to a different country. For me, the biggest thing was getting my green card. It was a lot of challenge for me. It took me several years to get green card. But having said that, the culture, what fascinated me the most about the change in culture is the interaction with children in this country. I know that in this country, children are treated like adults, so to say, like they have conversations with their parents, they have conversations with other adults. Unlike in Nigeria, where for the most part, children are told what to do, and they a lot of times when they ask questions for clarification, they don't get answers. And that was that is struck me initially, but it became even more pronounced when I had my own children, because what I kept hearing from their younger age was, "Mom, you're not listening. Mom, you're not listening." So I had to learn, like, to actually have conversations with them and listen to them and ask for their feedback and recognize that they have feelings and then treat them accordingly. That was something that I was not familiar with in Nigeria. interacting with adults as a child?
Yeah, for me, I think the first thing was the weather. I mean, prior to moving here, I've traveled to a few countries, so I've experienced winter, but all the winters I've experienced is nothing compared to what I experienced when I moved here to Canada. So the weather was like quite unfriendly. It was very harsh. I mean, coming from a tropical region, Nigeria, where you have like sunlight almost all through the year, and then you come here and then the cold eats you and all of that. So it was a big challenge for me. Another thing was like food, because the kind of food here is nothing, compared to what we are used to having back home. Back home you eat iwu, you have oha soup and all of that, but here it's more like more processed foods and stuff like that. So for someone like me, I don't like processed food at all. So it was a very big deal, for me at that early stage. But now I'm getting used to it. Trying to, change my, what do you call it, diet. I still try to eat healthy, what is available here, but I still prefer the food back home. So for me, the two major challenges were the weather and the food. I'm still getting used to the people. I'm still getting used to the values here, which, I mean, quite frankly, is different from the values we hold dear back home. But it's a more open society, it's a more liberal society. So there are things that, would shock any Nigerian that comes here, to see the difference in practice. But maybe those ones weren't really like a problem for me, having like being that I've traveled a little bit and visited like different countries. So I was kind of like exposed to some of the open and liberal ideas of the West before finally moving here.
Thank you very much. My experience was similar to Otuto's in terms of food, because I'm a food connoisseur, if you know. So, and I like my native foods.
Yes.
So when I came here, eating bland food without pepper in it was really serious. It was tough for me. I came at the airport in New York. When I arrived, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to eat. I was pointing fingers, So, but eventually I adjusted to it, and now I eat all kinds of things. But if you ask my wife, I have to have my soup, in the fridge. So that's key. Another challenge that I had was um, understanding jokes when Americans told jokes. I'm sure if they come to Nigeria, they won't understand that when we are laughing. You see them laughing in meetings and you don't know why they are laughing, because they understand the background of the joke, right? As you're laughing, then there's a background to every joke. So, because when they're making joke with Broccoli and George Bush, I don't know the connection, but they know the connection. So those are some of the challenges. I had challenges with the weather also. But what happened was eventually, especially when I was in school, I noticed that I did better in school during winter. Yeah, and I've been thinking about it as a scientist. Why did that happen? Because during summer, as an extrovert, I'm out and about drinking beers, hanging out, going to parties. During winter, I'm indoors. So I started enjoying it. I adjusted to that. But the only thing I cannot adjust to is I have to have my, what we in Nigeria call swallow. I must have it. Otuto, you're shaking your head. Otuto, do you make your own soup? Do you know how to make soup?
Yes, I do, but the ingredients are not handy here. So
even in Toronto, you should have something in Toronto. That's a big city.
Yeah, there are Nigerian restaurants here. There are Nigerian restaurants out here, that you can order, but it's not easy getting, those Nigerian ingredients here. It's not that easy getting them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think we have a we have a food episode coming up in the future, so I think you guys would be
Okay.
pretty excited for that one.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think it was interesting what you guys were saying. I never really thought like how the weather, would be so different. I feel like here in Houston, where I'm from, like the weather's kind of similar to, Nigeria, but I guess in like, some of these other regions like Canada and like Michigan, even like New York,
It's tough.
that there's like a giant difference
Yeah.
with just like how cold it gets. So I can imagine that being like a big
Challenge.
big challenge to like transition to stuff like that. I kind of want to bring up a question like based off of what NT said, just like the cultural difference in just like between like Nigeria and like here. Um, have you guys found that with those cultural differences, I'm trying to figure out how like to frame this question. With those cultural differences, have you guys like noticed that you've had to like this taking things from Nigeria and like brought them here? Like the way you're
Adjusted.
raised, compared to like how people are raised here, or have you like noticed like maybe one way is better over here compared to Nigeria? I don't know. Have you guys seen like those differences, and like what are your thoughts on those? Like, or is there anything like you would like to adopt, or anything like that?
Um, well, for me, I think Chinwe made a great point in terms of uh, the differences in how children are raised and the culture. I'm a pretty liberal guy in my life, so it wasn't really hard to adjust. However, there are the two cultures are quite different, and there are good and bad in both cultures. I think here children could get wild if you are not careful because of what Chinwe brought up in terms of how you can handle children and even the legal issues like spanking children and all that we can do in Nigeria freely. Because when I was growing up, I don't know whether others experienced this. Um, it takes a village. There's a book that what's her name? Hillary Clinton wrote. It takes a village to raise a child. In those days when I was growing up, if I did something wrong, any lady or man in the village can punish me, and my parents will be proud. You can't try that. You can't try it in overseas. Okay, you cannot try that. Nobody does that. Now you can be sued. You can be sued. So there are good things that happened. The good culture that we brought over here, but the culture that was bad was what Chin already raised. That children are shut up. They cannot. Um, you don't allow them to open up. We don't allow them to air their views and for their creativity to really come up. So we shut them down, and that can stunt growth. That can stunt growth. There is like when we were growing up, if you were playing soccer, football, or any sports, you were considered that you might not be successful in life. Okay, but over here, uh, sports men and women are millionaires, billionaires, and now everybody wants to play football. So those kinds of things, people were not allowed to express their destiny freely. If you are not smart, if you don't do well in the classroom, you are considered dumb. During my own time. So those are some of the bad things that happened But the good part is, I think the way we raise children in terms of, you know, them being religious, because right here, it's really difficult. You can't force your children to go to church. You can't force them to do some of these things. The way that we raise people, children, with regard to their to their religious belief, especially Christianity, was better.
Yeah, I agree with most of the things Uncle Onyeloha has said, especially the Nigerian part of taking a village to raise a child. That's a very, very key part of our culture in raising children in Nigeria. That is something that I see lacking here. And like Uncle Onyeloha also said, the good part that what I learned from here is to acknowledge every child as an individual and treat them as such, and let them express themselves if I'm communicating with them, and seek their opinion too. Because if I'm taking a decision, if I'm doing anything that involves any of my children, I want inputs from them. I want them to participate, and I want to know what they think, and then we'll take a decision together.
Yeah, for me, still weighing in on this issue of raising children. We don't have children yet, but I'm scared that when I start having children, like I don't want to have my kids here. Maybe have them here, then take them back to Nigeria. I think there still has to be a blend or a balance of both approaches, the Western approach and our approach back home. Of course, not to flog children, maybe the way we were flogged, or put children through that form of abuse. But I'm a Christian, and it's still, the Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child, right? So there has to be that balance between disciplining your children the African way and then disciplining them the Western way. So there has to be a balance, between both approaches. Because when I look at, myself and my generation and all of that, most that training we went through, even though we didn't like it, growing up in Nigeria, is part of what has made us who we are today. It's part of what has built our resilience and all of that today. But you see, like children these days, the way they speak to their parents, the way they act around their parents, you just keep wondering what's going on. Even like what we call Gen Zs now, you see them, they are not as mentally tough as millennials. I'm a millennial. So you see many of the Gen Zs, at least the ones I've come across, many of them are not mentally tough. Many of them can't withstand certain pressures of life. Many of them don't have, that emotional intelligence and quotient to navigate certain kind of situations because, they were not, raised in that way, or they didn't have that, blend of the African style with the Western style. So it's something that, I think about. But when I start having children, I think I would want to raise them, back home to a large extent so that they understand certain things about life, and for me to be able to give them some other form of discipline. There are other things I found, culturally. It wasn't really shocking because, we know about them, watching the news and all of that, all these conversations going on right now about, sexuality and all of that, back home is still a big deal, but here you just see it like normalized. Back home is even still like a criminal offense to, to declare certain sexuality, that is different from what is the norm back home. But here it's normal. The society here is like very liberal, so it's not really an issue. For me, it's not an issue, but I see certain, Nigerians that come here, or people from other African countries come here, and they find it difficult to understand it. And, many of them, get into trouble because of their utterances and all of that. And then even me, I almost even got into trouble one time because of this pronoun thing. So first of all, in Igbo language, I don't think we have pronouns, first of all. And then, so when you're, yes, well, in Igbo language, you don't have pronouns. If you are saying, oh, yeah, you can Onya means like you can be a man or a woman. Or
Or child.
it's not we don't have pronouns he or she.
Right.
So but because of course, in as much as Igbo was our first language, English was also our first language because we were raised with both languages. So we understand he and she. But then you come here, you see someone that you think is the female, and then you use the pronoun she, and then they find it offensive and you could get into trouble. It actually happened to me. And I was like, I referred to the person as she, and it was like, no, that they are not she, that is they. And I'm like, how can one person be they? You are just one person. Like, how can you be they? They should be like two or more people, that sort of thing. So it could get you into trouble. But I explained myself that back home, we don't have pronouns for my language. And then I thought you were female. That's why I used she. And then I had to apologize. And then, of course, that was it. But I've seen people, get into trouble, especially if you're having conversations or you're meeting people that don't have that understanding that your context is different from theirs. So those are some of like the cultural shocks and, differences that I've come across so far.
Yeah, it's
Do you like to add to that and advise the new people that are coming over? We are very opinionated when it comes to the kind of topic that Otuto just discussed, Christianity. We think that we are the best Christians in this world. That's the mindset we come at. So when you are coming over, the new people coming over, just be careful about
Very
your
true.
opinions, especially when it comes to things like this, or to Jewish people, or to this. You could easily be called anti-Semitic if you are going to say Jews control everything in the world, they have too much money. So when you come to these conversations and you are new, I recommend that you keep quiet and just listen until you are familiar with how to interact in these new environments.
Very true. Very, very true. I agree with you 100%. So when you come here, you need to drop your strong opinions, really, and just try to understand, even till now, and even though like I've traveled and I know like I've seen certain things, I still try to like keep quiet and observe, and not say anything when certain conversations are ongoing. Like sometimes, even when my opinion is sought, I plead the fifth. I say I don't have an opinion. I just decide not to comment because you never know when something you say will be misconstrued or read in a wrong way. And then, of course, you're a person of color, you're Black. So, of course, you have racism and all those barriers, and then you want to add more to yourself. So I support, Uncle's opinion 100%.
Yeah, I think these are, very interesting points that everyone brought up. There's just like everywhere we go, there's just like differences in culture. Like even someone, if they decided to move from America over to Nigeria, they would experience something similar, in the same way, I'd imagine. Just because of the cultures are different, the languages are different. Like I didn't even know like the Igbo language didn't have like pronouns, and I can imagine like, coming over here that could, be kind of a shock if you're not like used to that kind of stuff. So just like, being observant and learning from which cultures you're kind of assimilating to is like really important. Yeah. So I mean that's kind of interesting because I know like if I was to when I was younger, I used to have a problem with like handing something to my dad with like my left hand. And I know that's like not something that's like really accepted over in Nigeria. So that just kind of brings to light just how like there's just a lot of differences in whichever culture you kind of go into. But one thing I thought was really interesting was like a point you guys brought up was just the you know, it takes a village to raise like a kid, that whole like thought process. And I think that kind of brings to light like the importance of community in like the Nigerian culture, which is not so present here in America. I think, a lot of us are more individualistic, kind of like keep to ourselves in a certain way. At times, not like caring so much about your neighbor and stuff like that. And I think like in Nigeria, like everyone's like so close, um, and stuff like that. So I kind of like that brings me to like my next question is just like, from moving away from Nigeria and like transitioning to the West, like was it important for you to like bring over that sense of community, and kind of like establish, your own community here, in the West? I know like a lot of us like participate in like IPU meetings and stuff like that. So is that kind of stuff like, does it feel like really important to like kind of continue that and bringing it over here?
Yeah, I think it's very important. And I want to make another point. Then I come back to this with regard to these cultural things, because in this podcast, I hope our brethren in Nigeria are also listening. Because like this left-handedness, all those judgments we made. I had a sister. She passed away, Comfort, one of your aunties. She was left-handed. And I remember as a child, the kind of abuse that she received, even from the parents, where she was put a heavy metal on her left hand so she couldn't be using it. People are left-handed. Many left-handed people are smart. Nemoma is left-handed. Hillary Clinton, all these people, presidents of the US, even Obama. So some of those cultural beliefs that we had, even some of your aunties, they were almost dumped because they were twins, and my father stopped it. Okay, so these are some of the lessons you guys should understand. Then let me move now to the question that you asked with regard to forming a community here. Forming a community here was very important to me in stabilizing myself in the United States, because even up to now, uh, although I've been here for many years, since 1982, um, I remember Nigeria every second. That's why I'm always going back. That's why I even try to go back to establish something. So when we came here, we have Toya, as you mentioned, we have the IPU, and in the area that I used to live, New York, New Jersey, I formed the IPU, and we were having the meeting in my house, and we started moving it around. That helped my children to really understand the Nigerian community, especially when you come here, and some of us live in a community that is mostly Americans or white. How do you connect your family back to where you came from? Is by having these communities. And that's how, and maybe Otuto doesn't know this yet, because if he tells me that there's no store in Toronto where they sell Nigerian ingredients to make a egusi soup and onubu soup, I don't think it's true. But if it's true, then I have a business that can make me a lot of money. So we can establish one there, Otuto, if you're into business, but I know you're an academic, you don't like money that much, so having this community helps us. Like, one of the ways is what I just mentioned. Oh, where can I get a cola nut from here? They say, oh, why don't you go to Mama store, and go and get it, and stuff like that. So having that community uh, made me to be grounded also in Nigeria. Even over here in some store, I'm sure in LA they have it. I don't go out a lot here, but when I was in New York, New Jersey, you can get Golda beer, you can get all this, whatever you want, you can get, from the supermarket, from the Nigerian stores. And it helped also, very important, it helped my children to really understand their heritage. I know that Nemoma them, they enjoy listening to all this Nigerian music. In fact, they know those Nigerian music players more than I do.
Yeah, and again, I agree with Uncle Onyeloha. for me, being part of a community that I identify with is very, very important for me. The community that I'm part of here in Michigan is called OBAM. That is OBEN, the Association of Michigan. It was founded on basis of family and mutual respect. And those are things I identify with. They're OBEN, the people are kind of cultural people. So my kids also grew up going there, and even now they have grown and they're moved on with their own lives. Whenever there's an activity like picnics or Christmas parties, or anytime they're around, they go to the meetings with me and they really enjoy it. One of the reasons I like being that part of that community is because it gives me a sense of belonging. Makes me feel like I can go there, speak Igbo, eat Igbo food, do cultural things, dance Igbo music, and kind of bridges the gap between being here and being back home in Nigeria. Those things we enjoyed growing up. And I think the community here is very important for those of us who grew up knowing differently.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm still quite new, so still trying to build a community. Though the fact that I'm a student hasn't helped so much because there's a lot of workload and research to do. And like Uncle said, maybe, part of the reasons why maybe I've not seen where to get these things is due to that lack of community. For now, probably if I knew a couple of people, maybe they might have pointed me to some directions. Now I've tried to check on, like maybe they don't have like stores downtown Toronto, but maybe if you start going maybe away from downtown, maybe you'll see some African stores, maybe. But I'm sure by the time I have like a good Nigerian community here, you'll be able to like get like really good recommendations on where to get Nigerian food, where to, do things that are, familiar or things like that. And also having that community is also important for your well-being, being around people that, share the same kind of story with you, share the same kind of beliefs, say the kind of things that resonate with you and all of that. That's quite important. It's still something I'm trying to build. Probably when I'm done with my coursework and I have more time, maybe when I'm in my research phase, probably I have more time to, build that community and see how that helps me more.
Tuto, I'll speak to some of my students who I'll send out a note, see who lives in Toronto, and I think they'll give you some guidance on that.
And again, Otuto, I have two very good friends in Toronto. My classmates are federal or responsible families. So I will give them your number or give you their number. You can communicate with them.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Auntie.
I think Toronto is like New York City. I think you'll find anything you want. That's my
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we can, build our own community here together with this podcast, and I'm glad you guys have also experienced building your own communities in your respective areas, because I feel like, it's just very important for preserving our culture and bringing that heritage here. Letting future generations, learn about where they're from and get to experience, all that it is to be part of this Nigerian heritage. So I think that's great. I know a lot of these communities can be a safe space for us, and I'm really happy for that. That we in being such a new area such as the West, and how it can be so different from back home in Nigeria. I'm glad these communities can create safe spaces for a lot of us, and kind of protect us in a way, which it kind of brings me to a next point. I hope this hasn't happened to any of you guys at all, but I know here in the West, just being different can be a problem when it comes to racism, and stuff like that. And I kind of just want to know I really hope none of this is you guys haven't had like too many experiences with this, but I am interested in knowing like if you guys have had like experienced racism at all, like while being in the West, and how like you dealt with it.
I don't want to start every conversation. Let the younger ones.
Okay, I can answer to that. I mean, there is no denying the fact that racism is real, and it's a major concern in United States of America. However, personally, I've not experienced any significant act of racism. It does happen from time to time, like sometimes when I go to an expensive store and I see the workers following me up and down and things like that. But I just ignore them. I know I'm bigger than that. If I'm walking into a store, that's because I have the money to buy what I'm looking for. If I see it and it's too expensive, I walk away. So, but other than that kind of behavior, I've not personally experienced any significant act of racism.
Well, I mean, for me, I have, but I choose to like ignore things like that. So, I mean, the most recent one was like last week or so, because I live in a college in the university, so it's like there are other like graduate students here. So we were having lunch, and then of course, it's like a dining hall, so you will be sitting opposite people. So then I struck a conversation with one of the people sitting opposite me, and then they asked if I was Canadian, and I'm like, no, I'm Nigerian. I only moved here like a year ago, and all of that. And I said, why? And I said, oh, they thought that maybe I was from here because my English is good. And I'm like, okay, as opposed to what exactly you think we don't speak English in Nigeria, or like what, that kind of thing. It kind of like threw me back. And then I've had people tell me things like, I mean, I only got admitted into the University of Toronto because of EDI. So EDI is like the equivalent of affirmative action in the US. And those kind of things, I'm like, you know, when I when people make statements like that, it just makes me laugh, and how ignorant and stupid people can be out here. Because I mean, it's not a thing of pride or anything, but most people that make these statements are non-entities. The only thing you feel that makes you superior to the other person is your skin color. If I bring out my CV, you can't compare it. I mean, there's no basis for comparison. Most of them haven't even traveled out of Toronto, let alone Canada. And you're telling someone that has been to all the continents in the world, stuff like that. So for me, it doesn't get to me. It doesn't pay me. I just see them as ignorant people, and I just brush it off. You see people maybe shifting seats when you use the train. You see people, maybe there is no other space around, just the space you are sitting on. And then instead of them to take that space, they decide to like maybe walk away or something because they don't want to sit close to you. So yeah, I've experienced that a lot here. And I didn't think I would to this extent because I thought it was a more like, open society and all of that. But you still see a lot of both subtle and glaring, racism, and I've experienced, both. So, but it doesn't faze me. I just know it's from people that are ignorant and don't know anything about life.
Yeah, all that is true. Now, I'll come from the angle of what both of my younger ones have said. Just make sure it doesn't affect you. Because if you are black like us and you are in the West, you must experience racism, unless you don't understand racism. Because there are some of them that sometimes we don't understand what it is. Like one person keeps saying, I can't understand you, or like the one that Otuto just mentioned. Oh, so you speak English very well. I got that a lot. You speak English very well, and all that. But I want you all to realize this. You are in America. especially for some of us that came from Nigeria, from our background, and you are in leadership positions in your job, or you're at the top of your class in school, or in the kind of place I work as a consultant, I tell white people what to do, and they must do it. I advise them on what to do. I advise them on how to make medicines. You should be very proud of yourself. Racism, I just told Nemama this the other day. I said, even in Nigeria, we have discrimination. As an Igbo man, they're tearing down their homes in Lagos. They're calling you an Igbo man in the north. In Rivers, there, even Ikwere people that are related to us, they say they are not Igbos. So this thing is just natural. It's there in nature. It's just the way you handle it. And if you're in the West and you're allowing this thing to get to you, you will not be successful. You just got to brush it off and realize that you're even superior to these people. You are superior to them because even when it comes to the skin color, in summer, don't they go somewhere where they get darker and want to look like us? So don't let it affect you. Excel in what you do, and it's everywhere. Even in the families, there are some people are going to look down on you because you don't have money. So I don't really think about it.
Yeah, Uncle Onyeloha, I was gonna say exactly what you just said. Like, that's why I said I use the word significant, because when it comes to discrimination, it's everywhere. Igbo people discriminate against Igbo people. Chukwumerijes discriminate against Chukwumerijes. It's all over the place. Yeah. So yeah, something that unfortunately people will have to live with. But when it's significant and affects either your health or your happiness or anything like that, then that's a different ball game.
And let me go back to that, because when it's really, I say forget about it. But when it's blatant and people are, you got to take action on it. You got to take action. That's why I'm proud of the Black people that came before. When we first came here, I used to say it too. I said, Black Americans, they are lazy, they are that. That's not really true. We did not go through the degradation that slaves that came from Africa suffered, or the actual Black Americans we did not go through all that. When we came from Nigeria, we already went to school, most of us. At least 3 of us here went to school. We came here to get graduate degrees. These people were suppressed. Martin Luther King, they fought for us, J.C. Jackson, all these people. Okay? They were chased by dogs and beaten by dogs and all these things to make us who we are today. For me to be able to enter into an environment and I'm accepted, I do my job, I collect my money and go. And for Obama to become president. So we didn't go through those degradation. If somebody comes and attacks you directly and clear significant racism, you got to go after it. You got to go after it, including the law courts and everything. But if it's all this sort of nonsense, forget about it. It happens every day.
Yeah, like that. I think that's a very good mentality and thought process to have as Nigerian Americans, as Black Americans, and most likely also in Canada, just in the West in general. It's just like there's discrimination, there's racism everywhere. It's a part of life, and we just have to try to keep that in mind, but still move forward, keep being strong, and that's how we get through it. I think we might have to start wrapping up here pretty soon. I did appreciate getting to have this conversation and talking with all of you and learning more. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share about, just you guys didn't get a chance to real quick? It's just your any stories you want to share, or just anything about your immigrant experience here in the West?
I want to share my own before they cut us off, because I always remember sharing with my children, and it's funny but serious. When we came here, my family sent me here, but here is very expensive, so I had to work. I had to do all kinds of jobs. I was a security guard. I was a newspaper boy, and I did all kinds of jobs to make more money. I was a driver. Okay, I was a driver driving cabs, and that's what led me to jail. I went to prison. Well, let me call it jail. I don't know the difference. You know, over here, if they catch you over the weekend or over the holidays, you're gonna be there until the judge comes the following working day. I was there. That was the time I expressed. I experienced. I have my bed here, and this is my toilet, and I have a criminal that I don't know who they are. They locked me up because I was driving without a license, without registration, and everything. So that was my first experience. I was also a security guard where I was snowed in, 20 feet snow in Brooklyn, New York. And with a guy, we were there in the trailer in a construction park. And that was the first time I saw a shotgun in my life. You know, the guy showed me a gun and said, man, it's a blagger. He was a blagger. He said, you got to protect yourself from these people. So he showed me. I was scared throughout because I don't want to do anything that would cause this guy to use it on me. So that was my experience in America that is very interesting.
I think mine would be more of an advice to all the younger people who are who have the intention of relocating to a different country, especially United States. I would advise them to have some kind of skill. I know we're all in our family, especially everybody's big on education, but have some kind of skill. Be able to braid hair or sew clothes, or if you're into IT, learn some web designing. And that way, if you come in here, you can have something to rely on while you pursue your long-term goals.
It's good advice.
Yeah, I agree with Uncle and Auntie. I echo those sentiments as well. Most times when you're telling people back home some of these things, they just feel like maybe you are trying to discourage them or things like that. In fact, even on social media, I see a lot of people even sharing their experiences of how living abroad is not like heaven on earth. You don't pick money from the streets and all of that. I mean, like Uncle said, he had to like drive cabs, he had to like deliver newspapers, like Auntie said, picking up a skill. These are very important things. People just come here and people just back home have the mindset that they'll just come here and there's money everywhere. You just get jobs like that and all of that. It's not like that. You need to have a skill. You need to have, something to offer. And you also need to have, patience, for things to, happen and all of that. You don't just come today and get a good job today. I mean, that can happen, but it's not like very often, especially in my own setting. There are people that come here, they've been here for months and no job, nothing. I saw some documentary over the weekend of some Nigerian that died somewhere here in Canada from the cold, and it's not even winter yet. So I was seeing the condition where they were living. They were living in tents,
Yeah, so
and it was very heartbreaking. And these are people that back home they were probably pretty much comfortable. They could afford to like maybe live in a good apartment, eat good food. But they are out here thinking maybe better life is automatic here. So they just came, and then all of a sudden it's not what they thought it was, and then look at the conditions they are living in. So for those of us that are still back home, learn a skill like Auntie said, be patient, and all of that, like Uncle said, and don't think that it's all roses out here. There are a lot of factors that play and all of that. So just be prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, and just be prepared in any way you can. And then, of course, believe in God and hoping that He will make a way.
Yeah, that's all great advice. I appreciate you guys sharing. I know just like immigrating from Nigeria over here, and honestly just anywhere over to the West is, you know, a process that's just full of challenges, and just can be hard on anyone. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to share your experiences with that, and giving advice to these people who are also going through those experiences, and even the people here that don't have much knowledge on that, like myself. Like, I'm very curious, and I'm glad I was able to take the time today and talk with all of you guys and learn more about it. So I appreciate you guys for taking the time to talk with me and have this conversation, and share with everyone in the family. So thank you guys for that. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening as well.
Toya, can I say something?
Yeah.
Toya, I want to thank you, Kemakolam and Nemama, for initiating this podcast, because it's groundbreaking and it's great. I was thinking the other day, imagine if we had this with my brothers that are gone and sisters and my mother. Instead of pictures, I'm listening to their voice. And my children who never met my parents are listening to their grandparents. Isn't that amazing? Because I know that in future my grandchildren will see this, and they will. It's not just picture. Look at him. You know what I'm saying? They're hearing the voice. They're seeing how I move. They're imagining my my type of person. So this is great. I really appreciate what you're doing, guys, and I appreciate the time you put into all this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad technology's advanced recent years, that we can get stuff like podcast out, and that's something that could just last for years and years and years, and we can share it with multiple generations. So this is great. I'm glad we're doing this as well.
And I also encourage other people to participate, other members from different, bring people from Nigeria, from the UK, from Australia. We are scattered all over the world. Let them join and participate so we can hear their opinions and learn from them too. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, if anyone's listening to this and interested in sharing their experiences, or just being on a future episode, just reach us at our email. It'll be linked at the end of this episode. Our next episode is going to be over entrepreneurship and just careers. That one's going to be hosted by Nkame. So that's another episode to be pretty excited for. It should be out within the next month. So yeah, once again, I'm glad for we're all able to come here and spend this time together and sharing stories. And thank you once again for just everyone being here and for everyone listening. So
thank you that you brought two of my favorite people in the family together with me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Uncle.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you, Auntie Chinwe. Thank you, Toya, for having us.
no problem.
Bye. Bye, everybody.